You're watching Fox 51's East Texas Living.
Around 2 million people in the U.S. are living with severe asthma. Even while on treatment, more than half of these patients are still experiencing asthma attacks that may lead to ER visits or hospitalizations. Well, patients may find themselves having their sleep disrupted or needing to use a rescue inhaler multiple times a week. Well, joining us now to talk about severe asthma and a new treatment is Dr. Doreen of Midwest Allergy Sinus Asthma Respiratory. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tori. This is really a timely topic with all that severe weather in Texas.
Yes, it definitely is. So what is it like to live with severe asthma?
Yeah, those patients with severe asthma, it really just is a subset of asthma. We talk about mild, moderate, and now severe asthma. So those patients with severe asthma just are having more frequent symptoms, having more severe symptoms, having unpredictable symptoms, which could be cough, which could be wheezing, which could be difference in activity, shortness of breath, minimal things triggering them to have asthma attacks. And so really, it's about lack of control despite good medication treatment. And even things such as severe weather triggers it off. And so our friends, families, loved ones really having a lot of struggles this time of year as we're heading into spring very rapidly.
Yes, so what causes severe asthma?
What causes severe asthma is the same thing that causes all of asthma. Most people, it's this inflammation that is out of control unchecked called type 2 inflammation. It affects the lungs and certainly the entire airway, but this type 2 inflammation that remains unchecked, we really need precise and targeted treatments to try to get to that type of inflammation, and many of us are moving towards these more precise treatments rather than using broad immunosuppressants.
Yes, so what are the treatment options for people living with severe asthma?
Yes, most people on severe asthma are already using their traditional inhalers. You know people who have inhalers for asthma. They're using some pills that have been developed as well. They're using their rescue medications, which may be nebulizers or inhalers, to relax their lungs when they're having those exacerbations or exasperations of their asthma. However, with those patients, it may not be enough, and that's how we categorize them as severe. Using traditional medications, still having attacks, still wheezing, still short of breath, still reaching for the rescue inhalers. And in those patients, this new advent of medications, this class of medications is called biologics. These are manufactured medications that are precise targets of those specific types of type 2 inflammation in order to improve, of course, outcomes, ER visits, hospitalizations, symptoms, etc. I want to talk to you about something called Xdensor. It's made by GSK. It's the first and only ultra-long-acting biological medication that's recently been FDA approved as an add-on treatment for maintenance of severe asthma, and it's 2 doses a year. On top of that, we have to know that any therapeutic treatment medication has potential side effects, some of which may be severe and serious, like allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, although rare, we do have to be conscious of this, and certain infections. So I do encourage your audience to speak to their doctor to see if there's a new treatment available for them and to see if these medications are appropriate for them.
Yes, now, are there any recent developments in the treatment of severe asthma?
Yeah, absolutely. These biologics are super important and now vital for at least advanced asthma care in my specialty, in my practice. Many patients coming in, being exposed to these immunosuppressants we're talking about, you can think of it kind of like having little fires in the lung and in your immune system. And then are we going to use something that floods the forest, or are we going to use something that precisely targets all those little fires to take care of them without flooding the rest of the forest and the animals and the trees? So these biologics being precise and targeted really are the exciting new treatments for asthma.
Yes. Now, anything else you would want our viewers to know?
I think that really the opportunity is for patients to recognize that maybe they're not living their best life. I think many people are having asthma and they go into their doctor and they think they're just fine, and they say, how's your breathing? And they're like, just fine, doc. But now, again, they're not walking their dog anymore. They're not exercising. They're not going up and down stairs. And I think they have to reflect upon whether or not there's an opportunity to go back to living their best life. And it's not about being older. It's not about less activity. It's not about not exercising as much or their diet. It may be that their asthma is just not controlled. So what we think as physicians as severe asthma, patients may not perceive that it's actually severe. So I think they should assess their symptoms, take some tools, some questionnaires to see whether or not their asthma is uncontrolled, and to first speak to their doctor future about whether or not there's an opportunity to better their asthma.
Yes, well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Tori.
Yes, well, we'll be back with more East Texas Living in just a moment. Stay with us.